the Hebrew Bible. In it, the book of Genesis describes how God created the first two humans, Adam and Eve, in the Garden of Eden, and told them to go forth and multiply. For centuries, scientists and theologians have debated whether this story of the creation of man was mere myth or historical fact.
The Torah mentions that humanity is made out of the dust of the earth, and that God breathed life into this to make us animated. Here is the breath of soul, the breath of vitality, the divine breath, which suggests that the spark, the life force that makes a human body tick, is divine in its nature.
In 1987, scholarly disagreements over the origin of man intensified, with the discovery that the genetic lineage of every living person could be traced back to a single woman who once lived in Africa.
It's pretty well established by now, particularly from the the DNA record, that Homo sapiens did originate at one place in Africa, and after having become fully modern in the sense of intellectually modern, spread out to occupy Europe, to occupy Eastern Asia, and the old world in general.
It's sometimes called the Eve model, not meaning that we're all descended from the same woman, but it does mean that there was a woman in that early human population migrating out of Africa who was the only female who ultimately left her genes in every modern person.
But is it possible that mainstream science and the book of Genesis are both pointing to the same moment in ancient time when modern man first appeared on Earth?
The myth of Adam and Eve, I think, is not a myth. I think it's a true story. I think Adam and Eve were on this planet. They were the first human beings that we know of, and they helped populate this planet. What is the Garden of Eden? I think it just happened to be the area that the genetically manipulated human being, Adam and Eve, were placed. That's where they lived. That's where they started to breed, and that's where the populations of the planet started to grow.
If Adam and Eve actually had existed as described in the Hebrew Bible, might this also mean that a serpent really did tempt them to eat from the tree of knowledge? And if so, might this account have been an effort to describe the sudden awakening of the modern human mind, when man first became an intelligent being?
In the Bible, it says that if you eat from this tree, you will be like God. Satan, in the form of a snake, tempts Adam and Eve and promises them that they will be like God. The knowledge that Adam and Eve acquire, as well as humanity in general, gives man the ability to eventually carry out genetic manipulations.
So what was this tree of knowledge? Is the tree of knowledge, in fact, the helical DNA sequencing in our own bodies that was genetically engineered by extraterrestrials 50,000 years ago so that we would have the abilities that we have today? In my mind, it's our DNA itself that is the tree of knowledge. But why was this suddenly a bad thing? It would seem that the aliens, some of them wanted us to have this knowledge, to be like the gods. But others said, no, no, man is not to have all of this knowledge. This is also the same story of the Greek god Prometheus, who, against the orders of the other gods, comes down to earth and gives mankind the knowledge of fire. But because of this gift to mankind, he himself, as a god, is like Satan. He's banished from the earth. And why? Because he helped mankind to have greater knowledge.
The whole idea or concept of Satan is based on a misunderstood visit by extraterrestrials in the remote past. According to the ancient astronaut theory, the reason why we have the idea of a Satan today is because there might have been some type of a mutiny between good and bad extraterrestrial factions in the remote past. And so the mutineers were cast out by the commander, and they became known as the evil, fallen angels, which they never were.